Welcome to Table Talk, and thank you for joining us today. My guest is Miss Tiffany Anton from the Biz Foundry, and we have a local office, a Biz Foundry here in McMinnville. Welcome to the show, Tiffany.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you've got also locations in Cookeville, which is the first one you had, and then in Sparta. So first, I guess, tell us about the team you have at the Foundry and kind of what the goal of the Biz Foundry. What is that?
So the Biz Foundry is a nonprofit, and we were started, it's a state initiative for entrepreneurship. Launch Tennessee is kind of our, I explain it as our parent company. And so there's 7 entrepreneur centers across the state. And about 10 years ago, the entrepreneur center was located, the grant was at Rowan State University. They were all kind of paired up with colleges. And so we kind of said, people aren't probably going to Rowan as much for entrepreneurship help, so let's move it and have our hub in Cookeville. And so we kind of started in Cookeville. We used an old dialysis building from the hospital. They rented it to us for $1 a year. And so that's kind of where we started, and we started with co-working as well. We felt like having that physical location that people could run their businesses was really important. And Jeff Brown founded it about 10 years ago now, and I came around about 5 years ago, and we have a third member on our team, Jess Lewis. And so we're small but mighty, and now we have the 3 locations of co-working spaces, and so that's kind of what we've been doing.
Yeah, so you're there, I guess, as a resource for entrepreneurs and small businesses, and I guess let's talk about the co-working space, because you've got a beautiful location in downtown McMinnville. I know probably your one in Cookeville and Sparta is as well. What is the importance, I guess, of having a space for people to come to? Because we are a little bit after the pandemic, we had people from working at home, but there's a lot of advantages to coming to an office to work.
Not only the emotional aspect of just getting out of your house and connecting with other people and having conversations about the weather, that's kind of important, but also just the connections of every business kind of has holes in it that they need certain things with. In our Cookeville location, we have somebody that's working on an app development, and he was looking for a developer, somebody to write the code for his actual app. And he was just kind of talking at the coffee maker one day about how hard it was to find a good coder. And somebody said, well, that's what I do. He was a remote worker, and he was based out of, for a while, Pennsylvania, and I think in DC. And so he was had a full-time job, but he said, I could probably help you with that. And so he ended up working for this entrepreneur, and just those connections of holes that need to be filled sometimes. And so that is a way to kind of connect with people. That's especially what I feel like I do with my job, is just find people that have some sort of need and find the people that can fit those needs. And I love being able to do that.
Well, the location I know in McMinnville is nice. You've got private offices that people can step into and rent. There was a booth in there, I guess, where you could do telecalls.
We call it an old school phone booth,
yes.
You know, and so you can do private calls. But co-working is definitely, it's been around for a while. I want to say it's probably almost 20 years old. But having the communal space to go and run your business, or even if you're a remote worker or whatever you need to do, and having that community aspect has been around for a while. But in these rural areas of Tennessee, people aren't as aware of it. And what does that mean? What do you mean I just show up? So I like to say it's kind of like a coffee shop, but with a business aspect to it. We have the private phone booth. We have a copy machine. We have free coffee, because everybody needs free coffee when they're working. And we have TVs that you can display a presentation on. So I want to show you, we want to have a conversation about a new logo for Table Talk, and we can, display it up on the screen. And so we kind of have that upgraded business aspect from a coffee shop.
And it's professional. You don't have to worry about the dogs or the kids coming through on your calls and things like that, as we all learned as part of having working from home. So it's good to have that privacy, but you've got a community there you can work with.
Yeah, and it's nice. I mean, in our Cookeville location, that's kind of the most developed one. We've been there we've had that going for almost 10 years now. And so people, you know what's going on. Hey, where'd you go? What was your vacation? So it's that feel of having, coworkers and sitting around the coffee pot in the morning and having a little conversation about your weekend or your kids or your family. And so I like that kind of family aspect. I always have I put a big Christmas tree up and have a Christmas gathering. And so as we grow our Sparta and our McMinnville communities, I can't wait to see that develop here as well.
Yes, and you can also, talk about conferences and business things. And hey, you've got one sitting in there who needs help with accounting or an HR function or something of that nature. It's so good to have a sounding board to work with.
Well, and sometimes just even, man, I'm just drowning. I'm drowning in customers. Oh, well, you have too many, and this person does something similar, and we can share the load here. There's just a lot of community can help people kind of push through.
Well, let's talk about how the co-working space works. Do you rent that out? How do you?
So we have month-to-month membership. So it's kind of like a subscription. You just subscribe. We've gone back and forth with different terms that we've called it, of memberships or subscriptions, but you pay per month. And so you pay our basic membership is $99 a month, and that gives you access to all 3 of our locations. There's an app that we use that you have key access through your phone, and you can let yourself in and do what you need to do any time of the day. In our Cookeville location, we have a guy that's a DJ, and he's often in there at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll come in at 8, and I'm like, this coffee's lukewarm. I'm not really sure when it doesn't really feel like yesterday afternoon. It hasn't been this morning. Well, it's him in the middle of the night. He makes some coffee, and so I like the fact that anybody can find kind of the way that they want to use the space.
Yeah, and then of course it's completely safe. Everybody has, like, I guess, a key code where not just anyone can walk in there at 2 in the morning.
Yeah. Well, in our during the day, we have people that are in the locations, and so the doors are open. And when the pandemic was happening in our McMinnville location, we're across from the courthouse, and so people would come over to use the bathroom because the courthouse bathroom was closed.
Yeah.
And so people were coming in all the time, and we had an intern down there, and she said, "I think I'm going to have to lock the door."
Yeah.
It just we're not necessarily just a rest stop for people, so.
But a pretty one if they do,
yes,
but try to avoid, I guess, just random people walking through. One of the most, I guess, impressive aspects of the Biz Foundry is the coaching that you all offer. What are some of the topics, I guess, that's most needed for small businesses?
A lot of it is just reassurance that people are doing the right thing. And so people have an idea that they're really passionate about, whether it's a medical device, they're a physical therapist by trade and they've developed a medical device, or they really like fashion, and so they've opened up a store and they're selling clothing. But they don't necessarily know the business part of things. They don't necessarily know how to price their items in a way to make them profitable. And so we like to help people. We've had a tagline, Imagine, Start, Grow, whether it's that you have a business idea and you don't even know where to go, or you're at the point where you want to grow and you want to scale and you want to take on investors. We want to help you, and we would want to reassure you that you're going in the right direction. And whether that's us telling you and coaching you along the way, or us connecting you to bigger and better resources than we can really offer you, we want to make sure that you're successful in what you're doing.
So you can coach on basically, I guess, any kind of topic that the business person might need.
If we can't, we'll find you the connections.
Yeah. So let's talk about, I guess, some of the workshops you offer. I was really intrigued by one called Test It, but that's just one of them. Tell us about those workshops.
So the Test It Before You Invest It is we've run it as 2 or 3 sessions, but it's a small workshop, but really trying to figure out, is this idea viable? Sometimes people will say, yeah, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I've, invented whatever, XYZ. Everyone's going to love it. Everyone's going to buy it, but they've not done any research to know, really, is this viable? How are you going to make money at this? And so often people will, there's a book that we reference a lot called the Mom Test. And that basically is that if you ask your mom, hey, if I sell you lemonade, are you going to buy it? Well, sure, yeah. Well, but maybe your mom's diabetic and she's not actually going to drink the lemonade, but she's your mom, so of course she's going to tell you yes. And so really trying to figure out ways to ask people, well, how are you solving this problem right now? What are you doing to find a solution? How are you currently getting internet, or whatever the business is? And not just asking your friends, hey, would you buy this if I sold it? Because most of the time your friends are going to tell you yes. And so the test it before you invest it really kind of goes through, who is your actual customer? Go out and find those people and talk to those people directly. But we also offer a program called Start Up Your Startup. That's 8 sessions long. We have we have an accountant, a lawyer, a marketing expert, and an insurance guy come in and tell you kind of all the things you need to know. It's really where you can figure out how to build your business. We also do standalone workshops on accounting or web design or marketing. We're going to do one called Coffee and Content, and we have a content writer, somebody that actually writes website copy, and we'll tell you kind of what to put in your captions, because all that kind of stuff matters. It's how you're speaking to your customers. And so we offer a lot of programs, but then we also do social things. We have a monthly lunch called Powered by Her that we run, and that's just a way for women to come together and to connect and learn a little bit, but also not feel so alone. So we like to have social events where it's like, you don't know what you don't know, what you're missing in entrepreneurship, because you haven't connected with other people. And so kind of all those things.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I guess that program also has a podcast that you do as well. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
So Powered by Her has been a labor of love over the past 3 years, but I was seeing that most of the people coming to our stuff were men, and we didn't have a large female presence. And so I thought, well, what is that? Why is that? And so I started doing a free monthly lunch, and around the same time we started a podcast. And I just took local women that had a business that was viable and that was thriving, and kind of told their story. And my thought is that entrepreneurship can be contagious. And so I'm always hoping that people can be inspired by other people's stories, or just being in the same room and seeing what other people are doing and think, well, I could do that. And maybe I just have this little side hustle, but maybe I could dream bigger than I thought I could dream. And so Powered by Her it's totally changed the dynamics. We're definitely more female heavy these days, of just the women that come in and connect with us just because of that lunch that we've done. And the podcast, we're in season 3 now. The stories, the amazing women that I've been able to connect with and kind of share their stories, that's been amazing to connect with them. And
I find myself that kind of maybe I just notice them more, but there's lots of women jumping into entrepreneurship in the small business world.
Yeah, and I think that women had a hard time kind of standing tall and saying, yeah, I am an entrepreneur and I own this business and I've done this. I think it's like, well, I just want to dip my toe in, because what if I fail? And that's a big thing. And I think what I've tried to do a little bit with Powered by Her too is, so what if you fail? We all fail at some point in some ways in life. And so you do it, and then hopefully you're helping other people along the way, that they won't make the same mistakes you do, or maybe they will, but you'll be there to kind of support them and say, keep going. And so I think that's been a really cool thing to see the women kind of come together in the past 5-10 years of really owning what they're doing.
I know, of course, there's many phases of business ownership. We've talked about kind of starting your business, but you all help people, I guess, all along the way. Even maybe someone who's been in business 50 or 60 years kind of learn, maybe they're interested in social media or websites. How do you all coach them? One
thing, to have a business that stays around for 40, 50 years, you're gonna have to be adaptable. You're gonna have to know how to pivot to even survive the pandemic over the last 2 years that we've had to endure. And so we want to make sure that we help people be relevant. And so you and I have talked before a little bit about the fact that websites, people for a long time, people were just going to Facebook and that's how they were finding all their information. But that's kind of social media has become kind of a hot button thing lately, and so we're seeing a lot more people phase away from that, and so having a web presence is really important. And so you have these mom and pop shops that feel like, well, I mean, I've had all these people, they've always just come to my door and I don't need a web presence, but then they realize, oh, I am losing out on a huge market of people, and so I can keep my business, thriving and even growing of just having a website. And so we're here to kind of help those older businesses along, but really those new businesses as well.
Yeah, you have people, I guess, that kind of by using social media, they're getting into other towns and other areas, but then instead of making them drive here, they can just purchase it online.
Yeah.
It kind of can go hand in hand.
Well, and the big part of that people I don't think about sometimes is the economic impact. When you get to your point where you're selling outside of your region, people are sending you dollars into your business, into your region, and the product's going out, but you're keeping that money here in Warren County or the Upper Cumberland, and that's really important. That's the backbone of these small communities is small businesses. And so to make sure that the community knows, shop local, stay local, and even within our own, but even if you're gonna go outside of your own town, you're still investing into the other small towns.
Right, it still benefits our region and even our state too.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's always good to kind of keep your local tax dollars in your community. But we like to go visit a few other places too. I know the pandemic was probably tough on everybody, including the Biz Foundry, but you all probably have a lot to look forward to in 2022. What's some things you've got planned?
We do, for sure. I think that we can finally, we opened our McMinnville location in 2019, so right before the pandemic hit, and then we opened our Sparta location in the middle of 2020. And so we haven't been able to kind of invest into those communities as much as we like. Every time I come down here, I'm a Cookeville girl, but I love the community. I love this. There's such a thriving small business community here. And so I'm looking forward to having more events down here and having a really big presence. And so, just kind of seeing how we can grow these other areas. And then in Cookeville, we just expanded our co-working location, doubled its size, and we have 14 offices there now. And so just really seeing how we can invest into the Upper Cumberland and what impact we can make.
Well, I know the community of downtown was thrilled when you all moved into the Hargrove office. You've just, revitalized that building, and it is just beautiful.
Ben Meyer with Panther Creek Forestry. It's his building. He's our landlord, and he did the floors, the ceiling, and the walls were all done before we came in, and it was beautiful. And I just thought, this is where we belong. And they had looked at a bunch of other locations, and really just when I come down here to work, going over to Juicy's or Tops or where, downtown Collins River, and so just kind of having lunch at those locations and popping into Lemon and getting a pair of jeans, and I just love that small business and that we're part of that community. So
yeah, well, it's gorgeous, and if anybody's in need of office space, that is it's professional. Lots of resources there. You mentioned a coffee pot.
Yes, free coffee. Brew it yourself all day long.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tiffany, for making the trip from Cookeville today and coming and talking to us about the Biz Foundry. What a great resource.
Thank you so much for having me. We're glad to be here.
And thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed your time with us, and I wish you a safe, healthy, and happy week. Join us again for more Table Talk.